When a super empath rejects a narcissist, they do this. What really happens when a super empath finally says no to a narcissist? It's a moment that many of us caught in the confusing web of these relationships dream of but rarely witness. Let me tell you, it's not what most people expect, and it can completely flip the dynamic upside down, sending shockwaves through the narcissist's meticulously constructed world. In today's video, we're diving deep into the profound psychological and emotional shifts that unfold when the person who's always been giving, forgiving, and empathizing to an extraordinary degree finally draws an unwavering line in the sand. This isn't just about setting a boundary, it's about reclaiming an entire self that was nearly lost in the service of another's ego. So if you've ever felt chronically drained, persistently confused, or subtly manipulated in a relationship, if you strongly suspect you're entangled with a narcissist, or maybe even know it, but feel utterly powerless to change the situation, keep watching. This understanding, this shift in perspective, just might be the powerful catalyst you've been needing to break free and begin your true healing journey. Have you ever been made to feel profoundly guilty, just for having legitimate needs and healthy boundaries? If that question resonates with the deepest part of your experience, then this video is definitely for you. Let's start with a truth that many psychologists and mental health professionals unequivocally agree on. Narcissists are drawn to empaths like moths to a flickering flame. It's a powerful, almost magnetic, attraction. Why? Because empaths, by their very nature, provide an abundant and seemingly endless source of what we call narcissistic supply, that vital emotional fuel narcissists crave above all else. They find this supply through an empath's constant validation, their boundless compassion, their unwavering caretaking, and their deep-seated desire to understand and fix others. To a narcissist, an empath is the perfect target, a wellspring of the adoration, attention, and emotional responsiveness they need to prop up their fragile, false self. But there's a profound catch to this dynamic, a critical turning point that the narcissist rarely sees coming. A super empath isn't just someone who feels deeply, though that is certainly a core component of their being. They are individuals endowed with an extraordinary capacity to sense emotional undercurrents, to feel others' pain almost as if it's their own, and to intuitively grasp unspoken truths. They often possess a remarkable ability to see the inherent goodness and potential in people, even tragically, when that person consistently shows their very worst side. This profound sensitivity allows them to connect with others on a level that most cannot, making them incredibly nurturing and supportive partners, friends, and family members. However, what makes a super empath fundamentally different, and ultimately so dangerous to a narcissist's existence, is this crucial distinction. They may endure, they may tolerate, they may give second, third, and even fourth chances, driven by their deep compassion and hope for genuine connection. But there comes a definitive moment, a tipping point, when they reach their absolute breaking point. And when they reach that point, they don't just quietly walk away in defeat, they awaken. It's an internal transformation, a fierce reclamation of self. This awakening is not a sudden burst of anger, but a profound, unshakable clarity. They awaken to the truth of the situation, to the true nature of the narcissist, and most importantly, to their own inherent worth and the non-negotiable need to protect their peace. And when that happens, the narcissist's worst, most terrifying fear begins to play out. The reliable source of supply, the person they thought they controlled, has become something they cannot manipulate. Have you ever felt that deep, insistent inner knowing that something just doesn't feel right, even when you can't logically explain it or articulate the words? That quiet whisper from your intuition, that persistent unease, is often the first sign of a super empath's awakening. When a super empath reaches that point of profound awakening and as a direct consequence rejects a narcissist, they don't just end a relationship, they enact a series of strategic self-preserving actions that most people, especially those still caught in the trauma bond, simply can't fathom or execute effectively. Their actions, born not from malice but from an absolute necessity for self-preservation, are precisely what shatters the narcissist's control. Firstly, they stop explaining themselves. For years perhaps, the super empath might have tirelessly tried to rationalize, justify, or explain their feelings, their boundaries, or the narcissist's hurtful behavior. They hoped that if they could just find the right words, the perfect explanation, the narcissist would finally understand and change. But at the point of awakening, the super empath realizes the futility of this effort. They understand that narcissists are incapable of genuine empathy or self-reflection. So, they cease the endless explanations, the futile debates, and the desperate attempts to be understood. This cessation of engagement cuts off a major supply line for the narcissist, who thrives on argument and justification. Secondly, they stop trying to heal the unhealable. Empaths, by nature, are fixers and healers. They see the wounded child beneath the narcissistic facade and desperately want to help, to soothe, to mend. They might dedicate years to trying to fix the narcissist, believing that their love and compassion can transform the other person. But the awakened super empath understands that true healing for a narcissist can only come from within, if at all, and that it is not their responsibility or within their power to provide it. They realize that continuing to try is simply enabling the narcissist's dysfunction and further depleting their own life force. They release the burden of this impossible task. Finally, and most powerfully, they detach, not out of hatred, but out of absolute self-preservation. This isn't an emotional outburst or a vengeful act. It's a calm, conscious, and deliberate withdrawal of all emotional energy and engagement. The super empath understands that maintaining any connection, even one fueled by anger or frustration, still provides the narcissist with supply. So, they disengage completely, moving into a state of emotional neutrality. This calm, grounded detachment terrifies the narcissist to their very core. Why does this terrify them so profoundly? Because narcissists feed off chaos, control, and emotional response. They thrive in environments of drama, where they can manipulate reactions and maintain their perceived power. They need your emotional energy, whether it's your adoration or your outrage, to feel alive and validated. But a super empath who has fully stepped into their power, who has truly awakened, they give none of that. There's no drama to fuel. There's no desperate goodbye begging for a reaction. There's just peace and an unshakable presence that signifies their complete emotional unavailability. This profound silence, this utter lack of expected emotional turmoil, is louder than any scream. Have you ever noticed how silence, in its deepest and most absolute form, can be far louder and more unsettling than any scream or confrontation? That is the sound of a narcissist losing their supply, their control, and their perceived power. When a super empath, having reached their unwavering breaking point, finally rejects a narcissist, the reaction from the narcissist is not only predictable, but also profoundly telling. Psychologists and experts in narcissistic personality disorder consistently note several distinct patterns in their response, each one a desperate attempt to regain control and supply. Understanding these reactions is crucial, as it helps you recognize that their behavior is not a reflection of your worth, but a direct consequence of their pathology. First, you will likely encounter shock and denial. The narcissist truly cannot believe what is happening. Their internal monologue goes something like this. You've always stayed. You've always forgiven. You've always come back. Their entire perception of you is as an owned object, an extension of themselves, a guaranteed source of validation. The idea that you, their primary source of supply, could willingly, deliberately, and permanently detach from them is incomprehensible. This initial shock is a direct assault on their grandiose delusion of omnipotence. They cannot fathom a world where you operate outside of their control, where your will supersedes theirs. This disbelief often manifests as a stunned silence, a blank stare, or even a condescending dismissal of your intentions, as if your words are merely an unfortunate temporary delusion on your part. Following the initial shock, or sometimes concurrently, you may become the target of their vicious smear campaigns. When they realize they cannot control you directly, they immediately try to control the narrative about you. They will relentlessly try to discredit you, painting you as crazy, unstable, ungrateful, selfish, or manipulative to mutual friends, family members, colleagues, or anyone who will listen. They become masters of victimhood, twisting every shared memory and interaction to cast themselves as the injured party and you as the villain. This tactic is designed to isolate you, to erode your support system, and to damage your reputation, ensuring that no one believes your truth if you ever decide to speak out. For them, it's a desperate attempt to protect their false image and ensure future supply lines remain open, even if it means destroying yours. Next, anticipate the hoovering. Like a vacuum cleaner, they will try to pull you back into their toxic orbit. This can manifest in various forms, often initially charming and seemingly remorseful. You might receive saccharine-sweet texts, reminiscing about good times, heartfelt-sounding apologies that lack genuine remorse, or grand promises of change that are utterly empty. They might even feign sudden epiphanies about their behavior, claiming to have seen the light, just to lure you back into their trap. Some hoovering attempts are more insidious, involving fabricated crises, pity plays, or even threats, all designed to trigger your empathy, guilt, or fear, and re-establish contact. Their goal is not reconciliation, it is to regain control, to test your boundaries, and to confirm that they still have power over your emotions. However, when all these manipulative tactics fail, when you consistently refuse to bite the bait, the mask inevitably slips, the calm charm fades, the feigned regret vanishes, and their true, terrifying rage and meltdowns emerge. This is the authentic narcissist, unmasked and exposed. This rage is not a sign of sadness or heartbreak. It is a primal, unbridled fury, stemming from the ultimate loss of control and the profound narcissistic injury you have inflicted simply by choosing yourself. They may lash out verbally, emotionally, or even physically, attempting to punish you for daring to defy them. This is often the point where their public facade truly cracks, revealing the deeply disturbed individual beneath. But here's the key, the absolute crux of why the super empath prevails. The super empath doesn't bite the bait. They have moved beyond the illusion. They see the game for what it is, a desperate, pathetic display from a wounded, immature ego. For the first time, truly, profoundly, they choose themselves. This unwavering decision to prioritize their peace and well-being above the narcissist's demands is what seals the narcissist's fate. What would your life look like if you finally stopped trying to fix someone who fundamentally doesn't want to change, who is incapable of introspection, and who benefits from your pain? Imagine the energy, the time, the emotional freedom you would reclaim. The narcissist feels utterly powerless in the face of a super empath's rejection because, as psychologists often explain, narcissists operate purely on ego, not essence. They do not possess a stable, authentic, internal sense of self. Their entire identity is an external construct, a reflection built from the admiration, fear, and reactions of others. Without this external mirroring, they cease to exist in their own warped perception. Your exit is not just a loss of a person, it's a loss of vital functions that sustain their false self. When a super empath leaves, the narcissist loses several critical components that kept their fragile world intact. First, they lose their mirror. You were their primary mirror, constantly reflecting back the image they desperately wanted to see. Intelligent, charming, powerful, desirable. You validated their grandiosity, even when they were devaluing you. Without your reflection, they are confronted with their own emptiness, their own profound insecurity. It's like a vampire seeing their reflection for the first time, a terrifying, identity-shattering experience. The super empath's refusal to mirror their grandiosity anymore leaves them staring into a void. Second, they lose their emotional regulator. Narcissists struggle immensely with regulating their own volatile emotions, their deep-seated shame, their insecurity, and their simmering rage. They often rely on their primary supply to absorb these negative emotions, to act as their emotional punching bag, or to provide soothing validation that temporarily calms their internal storms. When you, the super empath, remove yourself, you take away their primary mechanism for emotional regulation. They are left alone with their overwhelming internal chaos, drowning in feelings they cannot process or tolerate. This is why their outbursts become more frequent and extreme. They have no one left to dump their emotional garbage on. Third, and perhaps most devastatingly, they lose their control. The narcissist's greatest fear is losing control, because control equals safety and superiority in their mind. You are a controlled entity in their life, a predictable source of supply. Your departure, especially if it's calm and resolute, is a direct challenge to this fundamental need. They lose the ability to dictate your actions, your reactions, or your presence in their life. This loss of absolute control is a profound narcissistic injury, a direct assault on their sense of omnipotence. This comprehensive loss of supply, the mirror, the emotional regulator, and the control, often sends them spiraling into a profound, often public collapse. But ironically, it's the super empath's calm, self-assured exit that delivers the most powerful, unspoken message. I see you, I know who I am, and I'm done. This quiet declaration, without a single word of accusation or a moment of drama, communicates an unshakable truth that dismantles their entire illusion. It's the ultimate act of power, not aggressive, but sovereign. Can you feel the profound shift in energy when you realize you don't need to fight? You just need to walk away. That release, that quiet strength is your true power blossoming. So what really happens when a super empath, fully awakened to their power and the narcissist's true nature, rejects a narcissist? The super empath doesn't just walk away from a relationship. They reclaim their peace. They sever the chaotic cords that once bound them to endless drama and emotional depletion, stepping into a serene space they create for themselves. They reclaim their voice. A voice that was silenced, gaslighted, and dismissed now speaks with clarity, authority, and conviction, no longer seeking validation from external sources. They choose healing over chaos, clarity over confusion. This choice is a decisive turning point, prioritizing their mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being above any lingering trauma bond or desire to fix the unfixable. If you've seen yourself anywhere in this video, if any part of this message resonated with your experience, please remember this profound truth. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not asking for too much. You're just someone who finally sees the truth. Someone who has reached the powerful threshold of awakening. Your inner wisdom is guiding you to a path of authenticity and liberation. Have you experienced this kind of awakening? That moment of profound clarity, when the fog lifted? Let me know in the comments below. Your shared experiences are incredibly powerful and help others on their journey. And if this video gave you insight or strength, if it validated your feelings or illuminated your path, please like, share, and subscribe. Someone out there desperately needs to hear this message today, to understand that they are not alone, and that there is hope for freedom. You deserve peace. You deserve truth. You deserve to come home, to yourself, to your authentic healed self.